From the Detroit Free Press, in the heart of the Motor City, it's Wednesday, August 5th. Here are today's top stories, presented by Bush's Fresh Food Market. Bush's has over 4,000 Michigan products, including the freshest fruit and vegetables, meat, seafood, and baked goods. Stop by one of Bush's 16 locations for the personal service you expect from your neighborhood grocer.
For the Detroit Free Press, I'm Kerry Jr. II. 7 deaths were reported by the Michigan Health Department Tuesday. 5 of them were uncovered in a review of death certificates. There are 664 new cases of the coronavirus, and in total, there are over 84,000 cases and over 6,200 deaths statewide. Tuesday's primary was historic because of how many people didn't show up to the polls. Since this election is in the middle of a pandemic, more Michiganders voted absentee than previous years. Free Press reporter Todd Spangler has been following the election throughout the day. It's been a little over 2.5 hours since polls have closed. We don't have too much information, but let's take a brief glimpse into what this day has been and look at the 3 major races for U.S. representatives. What information do we have so far, and why is each race significant?
We have every reason to believe that Congresswoman Tlaib is going to be a strong candidate in this race, but we don't have any numbers yet. Now, in the race for the Republican nomination for that Justin Amash seat, Peter Meyer has a commanding lead with about 65% of the precincts reporting. The state Republican Party has congratulated Meyer. We have every reason to think he'll probably win. In the 8th district, which is Alyssa Slotkin's seat, that one is still out. We don't know yet. There's about 31% of the vote in, last I checked. There's a former prosecutor, former Trump administration official, Paul Young of Brighton. He's leading with 33% of the vote. It's a 4-person field. But behind him is Mike Detmer. He's got 30%. So it's close. It's touch and go between these two in a 4-person field. The only other congressional race I would want to mention, though, is up in the 10th, where Paul Mitchell is stepping down. The 10th is up in northern Macomb County and up through Michigan's thumb. Whoever wins the Republican nomination is almost certain to be representing Michigan in Congress come January. Right now, it is a race between a businesswoman, Lisa McClain, newcomer to politics, 43% of the vote, State Rep Shane Hernandez of Port Huron, 35% of the vote. About 8 points.
There are reports that some polling places opened late and that other polling places moved locations. Can you talk a little bit about that and if those situations got resolved?
In one polling place, some poll workers showed up late. It got resolved. Other places in Detroit, apparently there was confusion because sort of last minute, the city clerk found out that places that they were going to use as polling places and had in the past were being used for other purposes. And so they had to find other locations within the last few days or weeks. Those polling places moved, but some people who went to their old polling place didn't realize it had been moved. So there was some confusion about making sure people who were going to one polling place knew they had to go to another. There were concerns in a few places around the state of poll workers not showing up. Now, whether that's because of concerns about COVID or something else, we're not entirely sure.
What is the consensus of how today went?
Secretary Benson gave the performance today a 9 out of 10. Now, that's before we got the votes. So, I mean, right. Let's see how this plays out and actually how long it takes. She's saying that she did not see, for instance, lines. She did not see places where numerous polling places were closed that were supposed to be open. She did not see things where absentee ballots were being, as far as she knew, left in places or not getting to clerks. And as of the last count, I think about 75% of those came back. So that's good. That means that's a pretty high percentage. I think that's what she's looking at when she's saying, hey, this went pretty well.
That's Free Press reporter Todd Spangler. That's the latest. For more information on COVID-19 in Michigan, visit www.freep.com.
This is Phoebe Wall-Howard, a reporter on the Detroit Free Press Autos team. Ford Motor Company announced on Tuesday that CEO Jim Hackett will be leaving the company after 3 years. Chief Operating Officer Jim Farley will assume the new position as CEO on October 1st. Farley has been at Ford Motor Company more than a decade. He came from Toyota and was recruited by then CEO Alan Mulally as part of a team that was put together to protect the company against bankruptcy during the last economic downturn. Jim Hackett has been contending with a disappointing stock price, disappointing earnings, and a number of challenges. Meanwhile, he's very, very proud of the recent reveal of the Ford Bronco, Ford Bronco Sport, Ford F-150, and the all-new, all-electric Mustang Mach-E SUV. Jim Farley, who's the grandson of a Ford factory worker, is also the cousin of the famous comedian Chris Farley.
I'm Kirkland Crawford with the Free Press Sports Department. Yesterday, we told you about Detroit Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford testing positive for COVID-19. Well, a lot of things can change in 24 hours, and that's certainly the case with the star QB. The Lions themselves announced on Tuesday that Stafford produced a false positive test last week, which has since been followed by a couple of negative tests. Stafford has been removed from the team's COVID-19 list and is cleared to visit the Allen Park headquarters. But in some respect, the damage was already done. Stafford's wife, Kelly, who just last month gave birth to the couple's fourth daughter, took to Instagram on Tuesday afternoon and described what she called a nightmare, where she was ridiculed and her children shunned in public once Matthew's COVID list status was revealed. But she didn't blame other people. Rather, she blamed the NFL for the protocols that led to Stafford landing on the list off of what turned out to be a false positive test.
For more stories from the Detroit Free Press, be sure to check out freep.com. That's FREEP.com. If you're a fan and want to support our quality local journalism, subscribe. Go to freep.com/special offer.